Is it too early to worry about playoff seeding? The Niners are already sort of fallen behind the Vikings for sure, the Lions and the Commanders as well. Bunch of teams.
Yeah, I don't think that it is too early, Grant. I mean, it's interesting because everybody almost acts as if early games in the season don't matter, but they all count the same. You get to week 18, your record is your record, and every loss and every win counted the exact same, whether it was week 1 or week 18. And when you look at the 49ers, and right now, a lot of people don't believe in Minnesota. I don't know how you can't at this point. They just beat 3 playoff teams from a year ago and expected playoff teams going into this year pretty handily. All 3 of them run a Shanahan style system. All 3 of them have young, borderline top 10 quarterbacks, and they handled all of those teams with ease. I think they're for real. And even if they take a bit of a back step, let's say they go 9-5 down the stretch. That means the 49ers are going to have to go 12-2 just to have the upper hand, because if they have the same record as Minnesota, they lose the tiebreaker because they lost to Minnesota. 12-2 is a lot to ask. And I think Minnesota, you look at that schedule, I don't think 9-5 is far-fetched at all for as good as they're playing. So, yeah, I mean, playoff seeding is super important. This team is older. Yes, they've made deep runs when they haven't been the number 1 seed, but they've never made it to a Super Bowl when they've not been the number 1 seed. And you're almost, with that loss to Minnesota, basically counting as like a half a game, you're already almost out of the race for the number 1 seed unless Minnesota just somehow falls completely apart, which I don't see happening barring injury, which, you can't predict that stuff. So, yeah, I don't think it's too early at all to think about these things.
What's interesting is like the Niners right now are behind Minnesota, Seattle, and Detroit in particular. And those are like 3 of the most dominant home teams in the league with the biggest home field advantage. Like Seattle and Minnesota, those places are so loud. And then Detroit, we've seen what they do at home. They're really tough to beat in that dome, on that carpet. So that's 3 teams that the Niners are already behind that they have to, they have to face Detroit. They got to face Seattle twice. They already lost to Minnesota. I think those are going to be some interesting. You don't want to face those teams on the road. And it looks like, it's early, but it's looking like the Niners are going to have to play some road playoff games.
Well, I mean, the Detroit game is going to be super important. I imagine that those 2 teams are going to be close. The Green Bay game might become very important. And the 49ers right now, they don't have any wins in the NFC, right? Am I mistaken? They're 0-2 in the NFC. So their 2 wins, they're right now, they're losing all the tiebreakers. Now, again, it's very early, but these tiebreakers all matter as you go throughout the course of the season. So to me, luckily for them, they've got the Arizona Cardinals, which are very beatable. And then you've got the Seattle Seahawks. You look up after this 3-week stretch, and if you played it right, you're 3-0. And now you went from last to first in the NFC West. You're in a much better spot. But still, if Minnesota beats the Jets this week in London, it's like, well, how are you catching them? How are you taking the number 1 seed from them? I don't know.
Yeah, to me, it seems like this is a team that's going to have to be like the one from 2021 and 2022, a team that made a run late and had to win games on the road in the playoffs. They can do it. It's really not easy to do. And depending on how many you have to do in a row, it's exhausting. But, again, this team has, I guess, this team has more pedigree than any other team in the NFC. So even if they are the 6th seed or something, you can't write them off.
Now what they can do is, as long as they go into the final week locked into the playoffs, they can manufacture a bye week in week 18. They certainly can do that, and that would be helpful. But what they can't have happen is a situation like, what was it, 2021, where they had to win just to get in. Now it's like, okay, so you've just gone 10 straight weeks playing football. Now you have to run off another 4 to win a Super Bowl. I don't think this team at this age is built to do that. So they're going to have to at least manufacture a week 18 bye week, which means they've got to start winning a lot of these games.
Well, keep in mind, Dre Greenlaw coming back. Christian McCaffrey maybe coming back. Devontae Adams probably getting traded for. So there's a lot of reasons to think that once the Niners get Devontae and Christian McCaffrey on the field together, watch out.
That Freudian slip on McCaffrey was apropos.
Oof. Sorry about that. Christian.